Okay, I'm going to demonstrate two things, but first I guess let me show you the settings on CLOCKstep. Just the light here. You can see I have it set up the same way you do, and the sync inputs coming from the computer, the MIDI outputs going in this case to a bass synthesizer, and the MIDI input is the start and stop from the computer, just like yours. I'm using Ableton instead of Bitwig because I'm more familiar with Ableton, but I've already verified that the the concepts and the effects are all the same. So in Ableton, I'm running a kick drum track and a hi-hat track. So right now everything should be in sync. Let me just test that out. I'll run it for a little bit. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slow down the tempo really low because I find that that really helps, our minds wrap our head around who's late and who's early and what kind of latency we have. So, okay. The first thing I want to talk about, and I'm sorry if this gets rudimentary, but I want to cover all bases. So the first thing I want to talk about is monitoring. I'm monitoring the external hardware through the computer hardware, so it's zero latency. If you're monitoring the external hardware through the software of the computer, it's going to add latency in the computer. So that's just going to be the audio to digital conversion of the audio coming back in, and it's going to be the overhead of, like in my case, Ableton running. So the software is going to be adding latency, and that's just a common problem. And that's even beyond the scope of CLOCKstep. Even though CLOCKstep is in sync technically, it's the audio coming back that's got the latency on it. So it's after CLOCKstep. But I don't want to just leave it at that. I want to show you kind of what I do in that situation if I wanted to monitor through the software. So I'll turn, let's see, this track right here is my external synth input. I'm going to mute that, and I'm going to play it just to show you that it's muted. Okay, and then this track here is the incoming bass synthesizer, and I'm going to turn the monitor on for that. Now when I play, it's going to be late. It's going to be out of sync. Okay. Now what I would normally do about this is on the master bus, I would put a line delay. Let me back up there for 1 second. Before I do that, in preferences, looking at the audio section, you can see the input latency. And in my case right now, it's 22.3 milliseconds. So that's the amount of latency of that input from the bass synthesizer. So as you can see in this plugin, I've already got 23.3 set, and I've just turned on the plugin. Now, the only tracks that's going to affect are the kick track and the hi-hat track. Those are both going through the master bus where that plugin is. The clock audio isn't going to the master output. It's going to a dedicated output 3 in this case. So there's not going to be any delay added to that. And then the bass synthesizer is coming in, and it's going back out number 4. So it's also not going through the master output where that delay is. So with everything set, when I hit start now, everything should be in sync. All right, so there's software monitoring, and the latency has been compensated for. And that had nothing to do with really settings on CLOCKstep. But, as I said, this is a common thing that a lot of people using DAWs go through. And so if you didn't know about it, then hopefully, that's going to help you out. The other thing that I want to talk about is CLOCKstep related. And if this is happening, it's an easy fix. And this happens to me once in a while, and it takes me a little bit to realize what's going on. So what I'm doing now is I'm resetting back to the way things were originally when I started. So now everything, let me slow down the tempo a little bit. So now everything is in sync and I'm using external hardware monitoring. Okay, great. The problem can exist in the routing of the mixer itself. So this is my dedicated output for clock. And as you can see in my mixers, I have everything completely off going to that channel except for the one channel that contains the clock. And this ensures that absolutely no other audio will find its way into the clock signal. What can happen though is an accident where I don't realize that one of the other signals is got some volume in that output, and then I play something and it starts messing with the clock signal. So let me just do that. I'll start the track back up. It'll be in sync, and I'll slowly add the bass synthesizer input back into the clock output, and you'll hear it start to mess up the clock. So that's something to watch out for. Those are really the only two things I can think of that might be the issue you're having. I'll think about it some more, but go ahead and take this information and try to do something with it and let me know what you find. Thanks. See you later.